Hi everyone, in today's tutorial we're going to learn to make a dahlia using sugar paste. So I've taken some of my modelling paste and I've coloured it yellow, and I've just got a daisy cutter and I'm going to take out two prints of this. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap these around a polystyrene ball. So the ball I've got is a small one, and I've just used a bit of glue to stick a cocktail stick in there, and then we're going to wrap these around. So I've just got a little bit of water, making sure that the imprint side is going to be sticking against the ball, and you're just going to pop it in and then stretch the petals till it covers the ball. You don't have to be too neat with placement, because if you've ever looked at one of these flowers in real life, they're not neat, they're not perfect, and they're a little bit messy. So once you've stuck your first layer down, if you push everything into place and stick down any loose ends, and then we're going to repeat the process again with the second one. So always making sure that you're stretching it over and pulling it into the middle. You can hold it upside down if it's easier for you to do. And then once they're all stuck down, we'll go around again with just a little bit of water, making sure we've stuck everything down. You can leave this to dry for an hour or so. And I'm just making sure that I'm flicking out a little bit at the ends, just so it makes it look like it's coming away from the bud. So now we're going to take more of this yellow. Now I chose to do an ombre effect. So in this one I've got yellow, then I go to a nice peach, and then a little bit pinky. You can do that with dusting, but I just find it a little bit easier, and a little bit, you get more definition if you do the actual colours the base first. So I've got some of these lily cutters, and I'm just taking out the smallest size, and we're going to cut out maybe about 15 to 20 of these. And then these are going to go around our first layer of the flower. So we're going to put our cutouts on our petal pad, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use a balling tool and just thin out either side. And then I've got a veining tool, and the veining tool will just do a line down the middle, and that's going to help it curve, which is going to give it a really nice effect when you're trying to stick it on to what we've got so far. So you need to do this with all of the petals that we've got. So just thinning out the edges and using your veiner just down the middle to create that curl. Now this is quite repetitive. You do this for every single layer of the flower. So I have sped this up quite a bit, and for some of the ones later on, I've cut out everything that we do prior, just to make the video a little bit shorter. So once you've done some, you're going to work your way around your base that we've got here, just using a little bit of water just to stick it on. Now you don't want the water to come all the way to the top, because these are the layers now that we want to start peeling away a little bit. So you can see that I'm pulling out the top bits so that it doesn't cover the ball. And then we're going to do the same with all of these ones again. So again, thinning out the edge, using your veining tool through the middle, and then we're going to stick them to the base that we've got so far. So after we've stuck our second round of these ones on, we're then going to move on to a bigger size cutter. Again, you want to cut out about 15 of these sizes. We're going to place these on the petal pad and do the same as before, but before we actually thin them out, we're going to put them in a veiner. I tend to put about maybe 4 or 5 in a veiner at a time, 6 if I can fit. Otherwise it would take forever just to do each one. So here I've just got a rose veiner, and I will put links in the description box where I got everything from. And you just want to roll over with the rolling pin and then take out the petals. And then we're going to give them the exact same treatment as before, where we're going to use the balling tool to roll out the ends, and then we're going to use the veiner for the middle. If you do have problems with your modelling paste drying out quickly, you can opt to keep these in a plastic wallet and just take out a couple at a time that you're working on. So once you've thinned out the edges, we're then going to use the veiner tool through the middle. And then with this layer, we're then going to fold the bottom of the petal in half. So you want to take a little bit of water. Now you don't need too much because otherwise it's not going to stick properly. And we're just going to wet the bottom. And then you're going to take one side and fold it. And then we're going to fold the other side over that. And it's going to give sort of like a little circle at the bottom of the petal. So you can see there that I've just folded it in half and just pushing it together slightly. And then we're going to do the same again. So I've slowed this down so you can see what I'm doing. So we're just going to fold one side and then fold the other. And you want to repeat this process for all of this next layer of petals and for every single layer of petals that we go onto. Now for this layer, I'm doing it quite far at the bottom. For the other layers, you want to sort of maybe do it about halfway up. And they don't all have to be at the same height. Remember, it's a flower, so you can do them at different heights to give it a little bit of variation and make it look a little bit more natural. So once you've got all of your petals ready for the next layer, we're going to take our bud and we're going to paint a line about halfway up just in the water or edible glue, and then we're going to stick the petals on. Now when I'm sticking the petals on, I'm going to sort of stick one on, miss a space, and then stick another one on. So as you can see, I'm leaving a gap and I'm going all the way around the bud that we've got. And then once these are on, I'm then going to go stick some more petals on in between the gaps that we've just created. I just think it makes the petals look a little bit more natural rather than them all going around the same way. So you want to push them on quite firmly, which is why it's good to let the base dry for a little bit. So as you can see, I'm just filling in the gaps, and you just want to keep going around until you've got about 2 layers of these ones on. So using your brush just to glue on any little bits that you feel need to be put up a little bit. This is the part of the bud where it's just starting to unravel. Now I've got some of my peach colour, and again I'm going to take about 15 of the same size cutters as before, and we're going to use exactly the same method as what we did before with the veiner, thinning the edges, using your veiner in the middle, and then we're going to curl them over. So once you've veined your petals and we've thinned out the edges, we're going to use the veiner again in the middle to create that curve and then fold them over at the bottom. So again, once you've got these petals, we're going to put them on exactly the same way as what we did before. So if you put one on, leave a gap, put one on, all the way around. And this is how we're going to build the flower up from now on. So once you've got your petals ready, and we stick them on with a little bit of water, I find it easier just to stick them on with the bud hanging upside down. If you find it easier just to stick it on holding it the right way, then do whatever feels comfortable for you. I think it's better this way just because as the petals are starting to dry, it's already forming sort of around the bud that we've got. So do make sure that you push them onto the bud quite firmly, otherwise you have casualties like I just had. And again, just once the petals are stuck on, if you go over it with a brush to get any of the bits that are not stuck down, just to put them down properly. So I've got some petal forming cups or flower forming cups I think they're called, that I've got, that I'm just going to put these in. And you need to push the petals, just pulling them out slightly, and leave it there while we work on the next set of petals. So again, I'm working with the same colour, and we're going to follow the same protocol as before, veining and thinning and using the veiner in the middle. So with this row of petals, when we're ready to stick them on, we need to be aiming to go slightly below the line that we did last time when we put the yellow ones on. So you can see that I'm going closer to where my cocktail stick is. I'm making sure that I really push them into place. We want to be going about halfway up the bud, because again we want these petals to start falling out when we put them to dry. This flower is quite an open type flower, so you really want to see those petals start to fall back. So once you're happy with that layer that we've stuck on, we're going to stick this in our flower former again, and that's just going to hold the petals in place. So we're going to cut more of the same that we did before and stick those in between the gaps that we've currently got. So you want to build up until you can no longer see any yellow coming through here at the bottom. So again, when we've got this one on, we're going to put it in the flower former and let that dry for a little bit, just to let the petals set back a little, and we're going to work on the next size. So we're keeping the same colour. I've added a little bit more pink into it, and we're going to use the same technique as before, and then we're going to start to stick these on. Again, the same method where you put one on and you miss one, and we're going to start to work our way around the bud. Again, you want to put these a little bit more close to the cocktail stick that's coming out than before, and make sure that you put them not all at the same height. Some want to be closer to the cocktail stick, some want to be a little bit further up, and that's just going to give it a more natural effect. Now my cocktail stick just came out there, but I'm just using a bit of water just to glue that back in place. So when you put it in your forming cup, make sure that you put the petals in the position that you actually want them to be in, because they're going to start to dry, so it's better that they're in that position already. So again, we're going to move on to the same size cutters as before, and we're going to add another layer on of these petals. After this layer, we're then going to colour the fondant just to be a little bit darker and start to add our final layers on. So it can get a bit repetitive, but it really doesn't take that long to put one of these flowers together. And they do make quite a nice statement piece for a wedding cake or a celebration cake. So I'm going to put this one to dry in a larger cup. So I've tried the smaller one, it no longer fits, so I've got a larger cup, and I'm going to leave that in to dry while we then work on the next layer. So now I've taken a bit of a larger cutter and coloured it a bit more pink, and we're going to use the same method that we used before and then start to stick these on the bud. So you can see the difference in colour, and it is quite drastic when you look at it and it's just plain, but once we come later on to start dusting this down and we're blending in the colours together, it actually gives it quite a nice effect. You can use any colour that you wanted to. You could start off with a darker centre of one colour and build it up to a lighter colour, or you can do it all the same colour if you wanted to. It's completely up to you what you go for, but this is going to be for a wedding cake that I'm doing, and this is the colour that I kind of wanted it to go with the rest of the flowers. So again, just following the same process as before and sticking these on. Now this is only actually my second time making this flower, so it just goes to show that basically anybody can sort of give this flower a go. It is quite a simple one. I think it's probably a little bit more easier than doing a rose, because it is just a case of cutting the petals out and then sticking them on in place. It doesn't have to be too neat and tidy, because again it is a flower. So you can see that I'm just popping these petals on and then putting it in the former to dry. So now I've taken the biggest style there is, and when we're doing these ones, we're going to roll them as before, but when we leave them to dry, put them over a paintbrush, and this is going to allow for a really nice position when we actually come to put it on the flower itself. It's going to allow these petals just to lean back a little bit more than what they would do. Again, same colour as before, so this is the sort of like the dusky kind of pink that we're using. So once you've got all those prepared, we're then going to work at sticking these on the flower that we've got. Again, using the same method as before, so putting them around sporadically, leaving gaps so that we can fill those in later, putting some higher up, some lower than others, just to give it that uneven effect, because that's what this flower is. So because we've let the bud dry, you can hold the flower like this without actually damaging any of it. So as you can see, this is the flower that we're getting so far. And when we're going to leave this to dry, we're going to leave it to dry in tin foil. So we're going to you can bend the tin foil into the shapes that you need it to sit the flower how you want it to go. So we're going to work up putting our last layer of petals on now. And just checking them to make sure that we've got them on quite evenly. And putting your cocktail stick through the tin foil. And you can see that I'm pushing the petals to where I want them to go. And I'm pushing the tin foil around the base and in between the petals so that the tin foil is then going to hold the petals in place while they're dry. Now I left mine to dry for maybe about 2 to 3 days before dusting, because I really wanted the petals to keep in position. Now I've just taken a few different colours. This is my first time ever dusting a flower, so I really don't know what I'm properly doing, but I've taken some brown, and the brown I'm just going to put in the middle very, very lightly. So I'm just going to take some on the brush, and you can see that I'm dragging it out to take the excess off, and I'm just going to start to brush some brown in the middle. Then I've got some peach colours, so I will put links to all of the colours that I have used. And I'm just going to use a really sort of small thin brush to put it on where I want it to go. Now I'm trying to dust the edge of the petals here in the peachy colours, and I've got a bigger brush just to re-go over areas to blend it in a little bit when I've put too much on. And we're just going to build up the colour doing this method, just brushing on the outsides and then bringing it forward and covering the back of the petal. The only time I've used the brown is just for the centre of the bud, and everything else has been a mixture of peaches and pinks. And the further out of towards the flower I've then started to use darker pinks like a fuchsia, just to bring that colour in. So just keep working on the dusting until you're happy with how it's looking, and making sure that you're not only brushing the edges, but you're working on the inner and outer sides of the petal as well. So you can see that when I'm going into the flower, I'm putting it on both sides of the petal, so no parts missed really. So as you start to build up your colours, you're getting a little bit more confidence. I've taken a larger brush now and using that to apply the colour on. So you can see that as I'm going out, or I'm using a darker pink just to get a different type of effect on those. And then I'm just brushing the actual petal itself on the pink layers with a darker pink as well. It doesn't have to be too even, because again, the petals aren't even, they're not all perfect. And I just want to keep on building on that colour. So I think all in all, it maybe took me about 20 minutes to dust the whole flower. can be a bit fiddly, but I think it does give it a much nicer finish once it is dusted, rather than just leaving it just on its own. So you can see that I am colouring the backs of the petals as well, not just the insides. So just keep having a play around with the colours. You can mix some of the pinks together to get different shades of the pink, which do look quite nice when you put them on the petals and put them on the base colours that we've already got within the flower itself. And just be careful not to add too much colour onto your brush at any one time, because it is quite hard to get off once you've got a big blob of colour on there. But once you're finished, you should have a flower similar to what I've got if you've used the same colours. I hope you liked this video. If you did, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and comment down below. To see more of my tutorials, please click the links on the screen now. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future videos. Thanks for watching.